Today on Everyday Injustice, we have three wonderful women here, formerly incarcerated filmmakers, and we're going to be talking about the realities of reentry. Last week, we had Daniel on talking about the work of Represent Justice and the filmmaking. I'm going to get to meet him next week at San Quentin at the San Quentin Film Festival, so I'm looking forward to that. But welcome to the show, and let's start with Dana Dickerson, who did The Trauma We Carry.
Hi, I'm Dina Dickerson. I am the founding member and COO of the Offender Alumni Association, as well as an outreach coordinator for the Alabama Prison Arts and Education Program through Auburn University. I'm based here in Birmingham, Alabama. I operate in 2 states and 6 cities as it relates to peer navigation and the reentry efforts for and by formerly incarcerated individuals.
And we also have Heather Jarvis. It's not okay.
Hi, I'm Heather Jarvis. I am a journalist and an advocate that is based in West Virginia. And
You
my
want
film is, hmm?
you want to tell us a little bit about your experience?
I was incarcerated for about 10 years, for actually for 10 years. I got out, I just figured out close to 2 years ago, and my experience has very much been a struggle, and the emotional reality of reentry is real. And so I just struggle daily with that and navigating it, but I'm here.
And finally, we have Naje, Webster, Gigi, the truth behind the mask. So give us a quick intro.
Yes, I'm Gigi. I served 8.5 years, and I've been home. I just made my 4 year mark. Yes, and my film actually depicts everything Heather just said about struggling with reentry. It was really near and dear to me because even though I would say that I killed my reentry in a good way, it was a lot of struggles. I just think I made it look good, and I just didn't show people what I was really going through. Um, and so my film really just shows the world what we really go through and don't talk about once we are released from prison.
And for the most part, I'm just going to kind of throw out questions, and people can kind of jump in as they have a thought. I may have specific questions or follow-ups, but I want to kind of start with, it seems like each of your films are very deeply personal. And what inspired you to share it publicly, and also what inspired you to do it via film?
Well, I'll jump in. What inspired me was really just I'm in a space right now that I work in with several formerly incarcerated people, and I've heard thousands of crazy stories about reentry. Some of which, the system was really like kind of trying to lock them back up. Just all the different stories that I heard. So when I was accepted for the fellowship, and they explained that I'll be making a film and I can really showcase something that's near and dear to my heart. What stood out to me was just all of the stories that I know. And I used to say, I wish somebody would know this, somebody could hear this, and maybe it'll something will change. um I used to say that all the time. And so when I was accepted into the cohort, I'm like, I can be the change. I can put the
Hey.
stories out there, and I can, tell the stories that people don't know. And because even when people see me, everybody's like, "You've done so good," and in my mind, I'm like, I'm going crazy. So it
Yeah.
was like I need to show people that it's not as good as it looks. Like, the journey to
Um,
get where we are is really hard. And so that was my main inspiration behind my film.
Heather, did
Well,
you want to jump in?
I would just say that my inspiration for It's Not Okay, it was actually like a real time, because my film, that was not the original film I wrote. It was actually it just came out of a very rough place, and it started with a poem that I wrote, and I hadn't wrote since I'd been out, and it was like it reminded me why I like to speak out and why I do what I do and why writing helps me so much. So, um, but as far as like why I want to share it publicly, it's just because I think a lot of people just want it. Like Gigi said, it looks like it's easy, and people think that like it's so black and white. Like you either get out and you make it or you don't. But there's such a gray area in between, and so I really wanted to show that, and just from an authentic place with my film.
And go ahead, Dana.
Well, the trauma we carry, the name just evolved from the heart space and the inspiration of wanting to highlight youth injustice. I did not want the film to be about me at all. Coming into this thing, I think I was the one that was kicking and screaming with the ideas of, yeah, talk about yourself. It's an opportunity. And it wasn't, because the work I do is centered in advocacy and need, as it relates to who we really are and what we really go through, as it relates to engaging in criminal justice system, coming home and everybody putting us in this box, telling us what we need, this checklist of things, housing, employment, just all the things. And they really don't know the trauma of exiting incarceration, the trauma we experience in incarceration, being separated from our loved ones and life as we know it, or the thing that actually brought us to a space of being incarcerated. And so doing a lot of interpersonal work, I realized that early childhood trauma really is a real thing, and those ACEs scores really do dictate some things about us and our outcomes. And so many of our fellow comrades that's at home and that's coming home and that's still stuck in the incarceral system, in our criminal legal system, are carrying those things. And a lot of times we really don't know what it is, but we do know something influences individuals' decisions. So I started as that 6-year-old that walked in on a suicide attempt of my mom's. And so many other people that I work with, as with Gigi, have shared so many stories. And so I needed their stories to be heard, what their real struggles really are, right? And so, and they're unhealed and untreated. And so they come home with these things, and they have a very hard time trying to transition into a society that really don't want them. And many of the men, black and brown, have served 30 and 40 years, but they went in as teenagers and children. So did sentence the child that was standing in front of you that should know better? Or did they actually sentence the 19-year-old person that's standing before you that's charged with a robbery or drug charges or whatever the case is? Because we don't want to eliminate the need for responsibility and accountability, but we really need to look at the criminal justice system through a trauma-sensitive lens.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. But I want to kind of start with a theme that I always come back to, and I'm sure the listeners that are regulars are going to be familiar with this, and that is that if we wanted to design a system that set people up to fail, we couldn't do a lot better than what we've done right now. And by
Oh,
that, I mean, I mean, every single thing when you get out is really difficult. If you want housing, get a job, go back to education. We've made it really tough. And it seems like we should set this up so that people who get out of prison can jump back into society, they can get a job, they can get their education, they can get their housing, whatever they need. And we don't do that.
Well, you have to do it from a holistic approach, right? And so if you haven't addressed some issues, systemic things that we know exist, you haven't dealt with the person while they're incarcerated, the only right that you've actually left the person with after you strip them from the gate is the right to choose whether they're going to rehabilitate or not, right? But you're going to allow them to choose out of the same mindset that brought them into the incarceral space. Right. So you're not really offering a hand up or an outlet or any kind of transitioning from the mindset in order to even seek something different. And then they're returning home to the same environments, let alone with these X's on their back that says you need to check these boxes for employment. Or if you pay a application fee for housing, then we do a background check on housing, which whatever it is that I've been accused of does not dictate whether I can pay my bills or not. But you would rather me be up on the bridge, right? Than actually moving my life forward.
Mhm.
So it's those kind of things that we have to look at.
I think uh one of the biggest things that I see is that whenever they incarcerate people, they put you in there and it's a struggle for communication and connections with the outside world. You're completely severed, you don't have anybody. But like over and over again, it shows that connections, not corrections, is what is helping heal people and helping people reintegrate. I was blessed to be in Ohio where they have like a lot of community organizations that come in. So they come in and then they follow you out and help you. And it's just crazy to me that people think throw them in there, lock away the key, do all of that. But then the day that they get out, they're supposed to have all these connections with the community and just become a bright, happy member of it. And that's not going to happen when they can barely function.
Chicago, what typically happens, especially if you get a long sentence, you're thrown in prison, and not until you're at least 2 years short of coming home do you actually start to get help. And honestly, I think the rehabilitation process should start from the moment you walk into the prison system.
Remember that.
Because
Start at the
no
gate.
matter how long you have, everybody's situations are different, trauma's different, stories are different. I think if people actually spent time and not based off of do you want to rehabilitate yourself, but if it was a demand once you step into IDOC that you have to take these classes because everything is pretty much outdate based. So if I come in with a year and you come in with 60 years, I'm gonna have access to everything, and you're not gonna get anything because you have to wait until you're 2 years shy of going home. And so think of people who are in their who have natural life sentences, serving 60 to 80 years, and then they go up for parole hearings and they have nothing to show because I can't even get into a program until I'm short. So it's like the system is all designed, especially in Illinois, to fail. Because if I have to, in order to gain parole, if I have to show what I've done to rehabilitate myself, and you all don't give me anything, I'll never actually make it to see parole, right? Like I'll wind up having to do my
Mhm.
time and they give you no preparation. It's just like, oh, we hope you can figure it out. Now, one thing Illinois has done is like help people get their state ID, those types of things. But let's be real, if you came in under an alias, if maybe you don't have a birth certificate, if you can't access these things, you still, and then if you get let out soon, sooner than your out day, there's none of that. So the people who get to go home maybe on clemency, they don't come home with IDs and social security cards and stuff. So the system is set up for us to fail no matter how hard we try to push rehabilitation on ourselves or, waiting for them to do it. It's simple.
Yeah, Ohio, whenever I first got out, I testified for Senate Bill 298, which has passed. So now they're working on the implementation of it. But now in Ohio, every incarcerated individual will not come out with their release ID. They'll come out with their real ID, their real birth certificate. So I'm real proud of that one. And they'd also part of it is community. They're tasking like community organizations with coming in for reentry work and things. But again, if you're not 2 years out, who's that going to help? But so
Well, I'm glad you guys have things going because we have that same law here in Alabama. It's the implementation that's a struggle.
yeah, that's what I know. I'm not really involved in it because I moved back to West Virginia,
Mhm.
but I know that the
And
organization.
understanding that the narrative that's being pitched to the media about what systems are doing is not the true reality in which those that are in these systems are actually doing, right? It's not the true reality. Gigi was talking about going up for parole and not having prison itself should start at the judges. I mean, reentry should start at the judge's bench, and prison itself should be a programmatic place, right?
Mhm.
Because it doesn't take 60 years to rehabilitate a person. Right. Now, we're not taking away the severities of certain things, but we really need to look at, are we really looking at this thing wanting public safety, right? Or is this really big business and there's an economical factor that's there? So we have to look at that because most prisons are centered in rural communities, right? So the income of most persons based there is based from this prison system and all the things. We just looked at the numbers, and I think the state of Alabama labor through prisons in the state of Alabama is about $450 million a year of free labor. you know.
Mm,
And so these are things that could possibly be helping individuals that have state jobs, if you will, be building themselves up to come home if it was wrapped into it. So when they ask questions about a true justice system, then we have to dismantle this one and actually create the one that we're seeking, because we know this one isn't it. It really is not, right? So I yield there with 114 years for a nonviolent crime, and actually sitting here on this podcast with 90 years on parole and been home 13 years without any other infractions,
mm,
after
Wow.
leaving children from 3 to 6 years old with
mm.
abandonment issues today that I have to help them heal through their process so they don't become their mother. Right. So these are the things that we're talking about, and we're not addressing individuals as individuals. And we need to
Mm.
address them right away. All of that need to be a part of our system if we're going to have one. So,
Yeah.
And let me draw this in because I think you raise a very important point, and it comes back to this notion of kind of storytelling, because a lot of people hear, oh, somebody committed a crime, they're a bad person in their mind, and they sum them up to the worst thing that they ever did. And the
Mhm.
reality is that, in some ways, you're probably still the 6-year-old that saw her mother trying to commit suicide, and that childhood trauma is probably never going to leave you. And being able to share those stories with people through this filmmaking seems like one way to kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not okay. One of my main issues that I wanted to raise was just trauma-informed care within corrections, and just knowing that, because like you said, you don't know the backstory. And so I think the key aspect of that is trauma-informed care, just asking people why, and asking why whenever you hear something horrible that someone did, ask why, because people really are so much better than their worst decisions.
I definitely can attest to that. Illinois has this accountability theory that they use to incarcerate people.
Mhm.
So they use it where, like, and for instance, for me, I was involved in a home invasion slash robbery that I was invited into the home. I was robbed, robbery as well, and they still charged me as if I went in there because they found out that
Mhm.
I did know the party who robbed, but that how is that? You see what I'm saying? Like how is that? I didn't know they were gonna come in there and do that. And so they use this thing to lock a lot of people up. And while I was
Mhm.
incarcerated, I learned that a lot of women were incarcerated under accountability, meaning they either knew something and didn't tell, or was with a guy and he committed a crime, and the whole thing. But a
Mhm.
lot of people are incarcerated in Illinois under accountability. So it's like, even if I don't do anything, I'm still get labeled as that. So I still get, I have to go through a rigorous process when it comes. Even right now, I'm in a process of moving. I just
Same.
got off the phone with the new landlord, and he's like, "Hey, look, what is this gap?" And all this stuff. And now I have to explain to him again why, there's a big gap in my credit, why there, all this stuff. And honestly, like, that makes reentry so, like, terrifying, because now I'm on pins and needles. Like, am I gonna get it? I gotta be out of my apartment by the 25th. Do I have to start all over? Simply
Mm.
because he's gonna read something about me that's not true. But there's no way other than me. I had to sit down and tell him, like, look, you're gonna read this,
Yeah.
what happened, and this is who I am, and this is what I do. And that obviously, it knocked my background out. But I'm not always, afforded that opportunity to sit and tell
Mhm.
my version, beforehand. And so, just like we were talking with Ice, I'm not gonna get it. If I get pulled over, I'm not gonna have a chance to say, wait, no, stop. It was accountability. No, it was this.
Mm.
They're gonna see felon, and that's that. And that's the downside to it. Even once you're home, your background still kind of, you're never really free. You know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Whenever I first got out, just like on a storytelling note, I was at the halfway house, and I'm in a new city because I tried to start over. I was up in Columbus starting over. I'm walking. I go to Verizon. He's like, "You have no credit. It's not working." I ended up having to give my whole testimony to this Verizon guy, all that, but I left with my phone. Bet you.
Yes.
So,
And then that's so like, I mean, I love, I don't mind telling my story, but that's
but
dehumanizing. Why do I have to go everywhere and explain? And I swear I'm a good person. Like,
right. Like you have to like
why do I
convince
have
people
to
that
do
you're a good
that?
person.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, society is our second prison, so we have lifelong sentences, whether we're
Absolutely.
inside or out. And when we think about these things, and persons really want to know, that's traumatizing in itself that I got to go back and relive this and say this over and over, let alone the fear that I'm constantly living with because, okay, when will be the next time I have to do this, right? And so can I really come forth and be my true authentic self, which is a human being that just want to move my life forward, right? And so and that's very hard. And when we say put on someone else's shoes, it's pretty much difficult because a lot of us, if we really admit to it, if it's not us, we really don't care. It's not me. Oh, poor pitiful, right? But you keep it moving, right? And you still leave the persons where they are when we really need some allies to help us force this envelope forward to get some system changes that we really, really need as a country, right? And as human beings. So.
Yeah.
I would
And
love
Well,
to, oh, I'm sorry.
no,
I
go
was just going to ask, what kinds of things would it kind of help society and communities better support people that are transitioning out of incarceration?
So I did my time in Ohio, and there's an organization called Arch, accompanying returning citizens with hope, and also Kindway, and they just really have a great idea of how to help. They came into the prison. Probably I met Wendy from Arch probably 4 years before I got out, and I got involved in. But it's just like the littlest things that help. Like I don't even know how to explain it, but they really got the community support down, and like the community, like they really do. And I'm trying to think, like it was just like random things. Like when I got to the halfway house, my friend, I'm thicker, she only brought me crop tops. I can't wear a crop top. I called a woman from the organization, and she brought me a pack of white t-shirts. Like it's like silly little stuff like that. She's like, well, I can bring them in a couple days. I'm like, no, I don't think you get it. I only have crop tops. And she was like, okay, I'm coming. It's like little things like that. And it's like whenever you're freaking out because you're looking at the box or because you have a bad interview, that it's having someone to call. And yeah,
I
I
like I
think
mean tangibly, like just like clothes and stuff, basics, but emotionally just being there.
I think speaking truth to power, right? And understanding that leverage your power because you're not a formerly incarcerated person to help us speak the truth in order to get the changes that we really need. Spiritual spaces, they may need to adopt an extra ministry within there, that there is a pantry, as she's saying, strictly for
Mhm.
those persons, or a building fund. I think we need to push that applicate that background checks should be in certain jobs where children are involved per se. Housing, yes, but if there's nothing there, that's
Then
something of moral turpitude against children, because we understand how that is, then whatever is there, it's in your past, right? Because it doesn't negate whether you're going to pay your bills or not, and all of those things. School, being able to get into school, right?
Mhm.
Being able to get degrees and have career paths that needs licensures. We need that, right? Because the
That's a
things
big one
that's
for me is the
been
life.
accused of does not negate our intellect and our ability to do a job and to be able to have what everyone else wants, which is safe, joyous, peaceful living amongst our community members and families. So those are the things, and have engagements as this to continue to allow our narrative to be heard so that there can be not just system change, but heart changes. And
Mhm.
oftentimes people are looking through the lens in which they've lived. And if they don't have our experience, then they don't have our understanding. And to open themselves up with an open mind and a willingness to learn and to just join efforts with us as we're trying to do certain things regarding us. So I'll yield there and let Gigi say something.
I would say definitely ask questions. I think the society assumes they know what we need. I think they assume oh, just make sure that, get them some housing, make sure they have a job. And it's like, um, I think the biggest struggle most of us, if not all of us, go through, especially after serving time, is just figuring out how to be in society. And I think, and not just in society, in our families as parents, as if I've done 8 years and I haven't been afforded the chance to see my child, how can society expect me to come home and just know how to be a parent? This child has changed, they have grown, they have different likes, probably different snack appetite, whatever the case. And there's no preparation for that. It's just like you thrown out there and hope you can figure it out, and if not, we'll see you soon. And it's like, if I know for me, I came home like I in my mind, I'm like, I didn't do that long, right? So I didn't come home like completely disconnected from society, but there were things because I left as a child, I didn't know how to be an adult. So whereas technology I had in a bag, it was like, okay, but you have to show me how to pay bills, or you have to show me how to do this, and and it's like, when people don't understand that, they either mock it or make fun of it or look at you crazy, or now it's just like, oh my God, you people coming out of prison, y'all just don't know nothing. And it's like, the best thing for me would have been somebody to ask me, what do you need? What are your concerns? What are your, like, fears of what could happen? What are some things that you want to demyth? Because in prison, you hear a lot of stories. It's going to be so hard to get a job. It's going to be this, and some of it is true, some of it isn't. And some of it will cause you to have fear inside, that where you come home and you're like, I ain't going to put in for a job because I ain't going to get it anyways because I got a background. And so it's just like asking questions and allowing us to ask questions, and not putting that, what? You don't know how to do that. And it's just like, I know a lot. For me, the can opener was my biggest thing when I came.
Oh no, not the can opener. Ugh.
I used to be the can opener in my house as a child. I came home, I had the can opener, and I was like, ah, what? I would not ask for help because I'm like, somebody gonna laugh at me. Somebody gonna like, I don't know how to do this. And I went 2 months without eating anything out of a can because I'm like, I just refuse. And then finally, I was just like, just let somebody help you. And it was a different experience, but it was understanding that it was more of like, I didn't want to go through having to explain why I don't know how to use this because I've been gone for 8 years and I just can't remember. And whatever it is, it's just like, I think we come home trying to figure out how to blend into society. And I think it would do the world justice if society learned how to adapt to us, and not like,
Absolutely.
what I'm saying, but just understanding, like, because we are coming back into society. Let's just be real. The people that you lock up, if they don't have natural life or crazy sentences, they are coming back to society. So we are still a part of the society. So you should want me to know the things that I need to know. You should want me to know how to use tap. You should want me to know how to go to the bank, and whatever the case is. And so I think when society stops removing us and making it like we're not a part of them and realizing we are a part of them, then I think that's where the real change will begin. It won't fix everything, but it's understanding that we are still a part of the society. We just been removed for however long, but we still come back. We're still parents, teachers, doctors, nurses, all of that stuff. So it's like, you have to kind of be mindful how you treat us because you never know. I know people who are lawyers now, all types of stuff. And it's just like, you always want to treat people with humanity, no matter where they've been. Because I love to say this. Imagine you telling a lie at 13, and for the remainder of your life, you're called a liar for that
Yeah.
one lie.
Yeah, sure.
And nothing you can do about it, no matter
That's a
what,
great analogy.
no matter how many truths you tell, you're still a liar because you told that one lie 13, 14 years ago. And it's like, come on now.
Yeah. And toward your point, I think the stat is something like 95% of people that are incarcerated are going to get released into the community at some point. So the vast majority of those 2 million people that are, thrown into a cage are getting out. And so we need to prepare ourselves, which I think is part of the message that you guys are saying, and also prepare the folks that are incarcerated. So I have kind of one more question on those lines. How do your stories connect to the broader issue of justice reform?
So for me, I'm this young girl, I'm like the typical story. I like had a baby when I was 14, addicted at 16, locked up by 18. By the time I was 22, I got my case. And going in, you're supposed to be able to like prove yourself. So going in, I was very eager for that. I'm like, I'm going to do all these programs. I'm going to do everything I can. And it didn't matter what I did, they wouldn't let me out early. And so it's just like, and then even now, like I'm still considered. I got 2 tickets in 10 years, which you don't know, but they know. That is some real stuff right there. I did. I tried so hard, but then even now, I'm still like still labeled a violent offender.
I
And
think my story would tie into it because I wasn't like a at-risk youth or anything, right? I just got caught into a situation where I was young, I didn't know the law, and just kind of, let the system do what they do, and I just kind of sat there because I didn't know. And I feel like that's a lot of people. Um
Mhm.
it's a whole lot of people, and especially with domestic violence being a part of it. It's hard to tell people like tell your story no matter what, just talk
Mhm.
because those are things people don't like to talk about. And which was a part of it for me. I didn't like to talk about it, but the one thing I think would have really made a difference in my case was them, first of all, the pre-sentencing investigation. Like, why do we do these things if you don't take them into consideration, right? Because
Amen.
they early, with honors. I was in the National Honor Society. I had my CNA license at 18. Like these were things, and not to, talk bad about it, but
Oh.
everybody who testified against me had backgrounds and stuff. So it's like you bring in these people as credible people. And then I'm the only one whose background is clean. And then you saying that I'm the most dangerous person in the courtroom. It like to me, it's just like they want to just lock somebody up. And they don't really do their homework and research and figure out who am I locking up? Whose life am I ruining? I had to go to a conference in Bangkok and I ran into my prosecutor there.
Ooh.
This lady apologized to me and it literally was like, I am so sorry. I've been following you. I was wrong. Like, and it's simply because, and I understand you got this case and somebody got to go down for it. And instead of really doing the work because you gotta lock somebody up, you just pick the most vulnerable person. I'm the only girl in the situation. I'm the baby. I ain't gotten.
Mhm.
And you labeled me as a big time monster and like no tickets. It's same thing as Heather said, like, IDOC has nothing bad to
Oh,
say about me. Like make it make sense. And so I think if it starts in the courtrooms, or
yeah.
let's say it starts at the arrest. If you arrest someone, how about asking what happened and then really like investigating it? Because, I hate to say people lie, people extend the truth. There's all types of, or things aren't always what they seem. And I think if we got out of the everything is black and white, it's either this or it's either that, and just really ask questions, because nobody asked me about my abuse. That wasn't
Mhm.
something that was talked about until I was in prison. And then it's like, oh no, you what? And it's like, but my lawyer told me don't talk about it. So I think the main issue starts at arrest, but the real issue is in the courtroom. That whole game they play in the courtroom, because that's really what it is. They're leveraging human lives in a game. Who can out,
Mhm.
prosecute the other person, and human lives are at stake, and they don't really consider like who are attached to these lives and what is attached to these lives and the trauma that's attached to these lives that they're ruining. And I think that's the main problem. um
Yeah. Who determines when we're
yeah,
rehabilitated?
that, or that, that I
That's
need
what I.
rehabilitation. Maybe I need therapy. Maybe I need, counseling. Maybe I don't need rehabilitation because, and it's that like that process needs to change.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah. Wow. You guys raised some great points. And when we talk about reform, we talk about policing and incarceration and rehabilitation and all of those things. So you know, we're so much alike and different. And to your point, Gigi, it's all about we got to get a conviction. So then they're using fear because you've never been through this process before, and we need you to cop out for this. So now my rights are violated to have a fair trial and definitely won by a jury of my peers per se. All white jury. Most of them were professors or engineers up in Madison County, Huntsville, which is number 5 state for engineering. And so when we think about all these things, and they're just looking at this black lady over there that's been painted this horrible person on this conspiracy that, as you say, you were a part of, Gigi. They call it conspiracy here on this conspiracy charge. And then they explained to me what conspiracy was, which was having the knowledge of something and not telling. Like, what? You mean tell me because you say I knew someone and I knew what they did, how they did it. I should have came and told you when that, so all the things. And so because I wanted a trial, they weren't going to give me 15 years. They gave me 99 years plus 15 more because I wanted a trial. I wanted to, yeah, let's do what, Matlock them do because in truth, that's not me. Am I an alcoholic? Yep. Have I sold pills and drugs? Yep. But this right here isn't. So those kind of things. So when we think about policing, now their communities have flipped where police looked like me in my neighborhood when I grew up in the 60s, 70s, right? And when they picked me up for a child in need of supervision or whatever, they took me home for the most part. They knew you and all the things, and they were able to utilize what they knew about you in order to deal with you, right? And so, I remember getting in the back of the police car. I'm just tying in how this ties in. How do I tie into reform in the broader space of it? Where policy changes need to be made. The way we address individuals from the start needs to change, and how we view people needs to change, and all the stuff. Sentencing need to be reformed, and all the things. So, no one never asked me what happened. What's wrong with you? That's what it's been. That what happened to you, and so and then became a target for individuals that didn't look like me because they had heard about me. So if I hadn't did anything, you were going to make me do something anyway, because you had spent a whole lot of time trying to prove what you had heard. So all of these things, rehabilitation, that wasn't something offered to me because I had a long sentence, as Gigi had said. I had 114 years. So my first engagement with a panel of people when you get inside the prison after you do this mental health assessment and you do the PSI before I get sentenced, and it tells you all these things to hopefully create a programmatic process that's going to help me change my mindset, change behavior cognitively, rehabilitate from alcohol. You didn't do that because I was a long timer. I had enough time here to be a part of the furniture, and this is only a formality, and we'll see you next year for your hearing, right? Because that's how they categorize you, that's how they put you in programs and all the things. Well, we're just seeing you because we're supposed to see inmates as they're coming in. So where's the hope? So right then, I felt hopeless. I was definitely powerless, didn't know what I was going to do. I had messed my life up. I wasn't going to see my children again, and I need to get to work. Because if they ever decide to let me out of here, I do not need to be the lady that came in here as. So my rehabilitation came in as it related to self-reflection and a need to know what is really happening here, right? And now still wearing the badge and the label that you've put on me, I've broken part of it off, but I still believe the lie that you've told about me, that I'm just this person. So as to Heather's point, I'm just doing everything I can to prove you that I'm not bad. I'm really good. I'm a good person. And so that's pressure, right? So it's just a whole lot of things that my story actually, just fits within that broader space of, justice reform and the need for it, and actually creating in my peer navigation with others the true pathway to what successful reentry and transition means. It takes the first year just to get to a place of stabilization, and then the next several years is all about maintenance.
That much is so true. It is. I remember putting in for culinary arts when I first got there in 2013. I did not get accepted and didn't start culinary arts until 2021, which was the year I was set to go home.
Mm.
So I had, everything that I had to do theater, which I hated, but it was something I could say I was doing this, and I wind up loving it now. But it's just like it's impossible if you just really don't have it in you. Like if you just really don't make the choice, or if you're confused about how to start, you're not gonna get rehabilitation.
True. So true. I did 10 years to come home to get a GED. So
Well,
yeah.
this is a great conversation. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I want to thank each of you for coming on.
Thank you.
We've been talking about the realities of reentry, and we brought together three represent justice ambassadors whose films shed light on the personal, emotional, and systemic challenges of life after incarceration. And that's where we've really focused our conversation. This has been Everyday Injustice. I'm your host, David Greenwald. Join us again next week for more tales from the injustice system.